We're going to get to what's real and what's fake from this past weekend in just a second. And for those of you that are new subscribers to the channel, what we do every week here is we take headlines from the past weekend and we determine what is real and what's fake. So we're going to get to that in just a second. I wanted to start today with Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. When Kevin Stefanski picked up Case Keenum in free agency, I came on here and I told you guys that this was Baker Mayfield insurance. I made several videos on this over the spring and the summer. Before the season started, I said that Baker Mayfield had 4, maybe 6 weeks to prove himself to Kevin Stefanski. After the Browns beat the Colts last Sunday, and fans in Cleveland were all excited talking about the playoffs, I mentioned that we needed to pump the brakes on the excitement in Cleveland. I brought up concerns with the Browns defense, mentioned the fact that the best team that they had beaten all year was Indianapolis. Their other wins came against Dallas, Washington, the Bungles, who I should really go back to calling Cincinnati the Bengals to put some respect on Joe Burrow's name. The Browns were winning these games because of turnovers and because they were playing bad teams. But lost in that 4-game winning streak that they had was the fact that Baker Mayfield wasn't really playing all that well. Cleveland ranks near the bottom of the league in passing offense, which is okay. They rank first in rushing. I mean, this is a run-based offense. It makes sense. You have 2 of the best running backs in the league in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. All Kevin Stefanski needed from Baker Mayfield is to make plays when needed, and more importantly, don't make mistakes. Don't make poor decisions. The problem is, 6 weeks into the season, Baker Mayfield is consistently making mistakes that are costing the Browns games. When you're playing against bad teams like Washington, Cincinnati, the mistakes that Baker Mayfield is making can be covered up. But when you're going up against teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, poor decision-making gets exposed, which is why both times the Browns have played against elite opponents, they've gotten demolished. Baker Mayfield was once again god-awful on Sunday. First, Cleveland drive of the game, pick 6 that put the Steelers up 10-0. Baker Mayfield threw into double coverage, and what makes it even worse, this was one of the Browns' scripted plays. It was the 3rd play of the game. He wasn't under pressure. He had plenty of time to make the right decision. He had other options, but he was determined to fit that pass to Harrison Bryant. It was completely inexcusable. Then in the second quarter, he threw another bad interception with the Browns trailing 17-0. He was 9 of 17 with 116 yards passing, a touchdown, 2 interceptions in the first half. That is not going to get it done against elite teams. Once Kevin Stefanski decided to pull him going into the 4th quarter, Baker Mayfield was 10 of 18 with 119 yards. Yes, he completed 1 pass for 3 yards in the 3rd quarter. Baker Mayfield has started 35 games in his career. Sunday marked the 11th time that he has thrown multiple interceptions in one game. Basically, if you start Baker Mayfield, there's a 30% chance that he's going to make multiple poor decisions that could potentially cost your team the game. Now, his defenders will use his sore ribs as an excuse for his poor play against the Steelers. I actually saw someone who said that Baker Mayfield shouldn't have even started the game Sunday. He looked fine to me early on, but it was apparent after he took a few hits that his ribs were starting to affect him. That's fine. But what excuse is to be made for his poor performance against Baltimore? What about last week against the Colts, where he completed 57% of his passes and threw 2 interceptions? The only reason the Browns won that game is because Phillip Rivers is more proficient in throwing untimely interceptions than Baker Mayfield is. Did Kevin Stefanski pull Baker Mayfield on Sunday and put in Case Keenum in the fourth quarter to protect Baker Mayfield from further injury? Yes. I don't doubt that for a second. Will Baker Mayfield start this week against the Bengals? If he's not injured, probably so. But I also think that this was a warning from Kevin Stefanski to Baker Mayfield. Continue to play like garbage. Continue to make poor decisions. Continue to throw untimely interceptions. And I will not hesitate to yank you to the bench and play Case Keenum. The Browns simply aren't good enough defensively to overcome poor decision-making at the quarterback position. They're a run-based offense. They don't have the firepower. They don't score quickly enough to overcome a 17 or a 20-point deficit. Hell, most teams in the NFL have a difficult time overcoming that type of deficit. I told you guys last week that the way that the Browns were winning during that 4-game winning streak was not sustainable. And look, Kevin Stefanski's not blameless here. He didn't exactly put Baker Mayfield in a position to succeed against the Steelers. Stefanski couldn't figure out Pittsburgh's blitz scheme. The Browns' run game was ineffective all day. Adjustments were not being made. It was a disaster, just like it was week 1 against the Ravens. So I'm not putting all the blame on Baker Mayfield here. Odell Beckham, he was his typical self when things aren't going his way. He was frustrated at the end of the game because he wasn't really a factor. Hell, I don't even think Odell Beckham was part of the game plan. He was targeted just 4 times. Kevin Stefanski didn't call any plays specifically designed for Odell Beckham. So Baker Mayfield is not the only problem in Cleveland. Just because the Browns have other issues, though, doesn't mean that Baker Mayfield cemented as the starting quarterback the rest of the year. Like I said, if he's healthy, I do think he will start against the Bengals this week. But if he continues to perform like he has the first 6 weeks of the season, where he's inconsistent, making poor decisions, back-breaking interceptions, there is not a doubt in my mind that Kevin Stefanski will go with Case Keenum at some point. All right, let's get to what's real and what's fake from this past weekend. Starting off, Cam Newton says that there is no need to panic after the Patriots' ugly loss to the Broncos. Real. Got this one from Yahoo Sports. Cam Newton said this in his post-game press conference on Sunday after the Patriots' dismal offensive performance. And I agree with Cam Newton. There is no need for panic in New England. Not yet, anyway. Look, I understand why some Patriots fans are worried. That loss to Denver was bad. It was the first time in the Bill Belichick era that New England lost when the defense didn't allow the opponent to score a touchdown. Drew Lock tried to give this game away twice. Cam Newton just couldn't capitalize. The Patriots are under 500 in October for the first time since 2002. Those are all normal reasons to be concerned in a normal season. But this is not a normal season. I mean, really think about this. Cam Newton is in a completely new offensive system. He's coming off an injury. He really hasn't played meaningful football in 2 years. He didn't have an offseason to learn the offense. He was just signed in July by New England. There was no preseason. Then he was essentially off for 3 weeks because of the NFL's ridiculous COVID protocols. Cam Newton hasn't practiced with the team since late September. That's damn near a month ago. The Patriots are going to be fine. I'm not saying that they're going to win the division. I think the AFC East belongs to the Bills. But I do feel like New England's a playoff team. They've beaten the Dolphins, who I wouldn't call great, but definitely not a bad team down there in Miami. Brian Flores has them headed in the right direction. Then the Patriots took the Seahawks down to the wire on the road. Beat the hell out of the Raiders, who just pulled the biggest upset of the season last week in Kansas City. Sunday against Denver was really the first time all season that New England has laid a complete egg offensively. Not counting that game against the Chiefs where Cam Newton didn't play. And I lay a little bit of the blame Sunday for that loss to Denver on Bill Belichick. Cam Newton was god-awful. There's no getting around that. But The Patriots had a chance to win that game. They were down 9 points with about 8.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They had just scored their first touchdown of the game. Instead of kicking the extra point, Bill Belichick decided to go for two. The Patriots, they fell on the 2-point conversion. So instead of being in a one-possession game, down 8 points in the fourth quarter, they're in a two-possession game, down 9 points. It made zero sense to me. We saw the same thing with Ron Rivera in Washington. They score a late touchdown, have a chance to tie the game with about a minute to go in the fourth quarter. Riverboat Ron, living up to his reputation, elects to go for two instead and fails. I mean, what the hell is going on? Analytics says it's the right call. To hell with analytics. Analytics also said that COVID was going to kill 2 million Americans in 6 months. We're not even close to reaching that number. These coaches, I feel like, sometimes get lost in these analytics, and common sense just seems to go right out the window. Anyway, New England's going to be fine. Give Cam Newton some time to get acclimated, to adjust. I mean, the Patriots have a top 10 defense. Once Cam Newton learns this system, they should be effective enough offensively to win games like they were in Sunday against Denver. Like I said earlier, people are forgetting about all the time that Cam Newton has missed because of these ridiculous COVID protocols. So, I agree with Cam Newton. It is not time yet to panic in New England. All right, next up. Kirk Cousins will not finish the season with the Vikings if the interceptions continue. Fake. I got this one from ESPN. Let me start by saying that Kirk Cousins has been garbage this season. Right now, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL and is a prime example of why most NFL teams are leery to give out fully guaranteed contracts. 4 out of 6 games this season, Kirk Cousins has thrown multiple interceptions or multiple turnover games. Twice, he's thrown 3 interceptions in a game. Hell, he had 3 interceptions in the first half Sunday against the Falcons. The bye week couldn't come at a more perfect time for Kirk Cousins because he is getting murdered by the fans and the media in Minnesota. Listen, Kirk Cousins is bad, but he didn't get any help from the Vikings front office over this past offseason. They traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills. Don't remember Kirk Cousins signing off on that deal. They let Everson Griffin walk in free agency because they didn't want to pay him. They lost 2 cornerbacks, an offensive guard, and Josh Klein, along with other players that they lost over the offseason. This is a completely different team in Minnesota than they were last year, and a completely different defense. The Vikings went from being a top 5 defense to being ranked 31st this year. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL. Kirk Cousins knows that right now he has got to carry this team, which wasn't the case last season because the defense was so dominant. The margin for error for Cousins is gone, along with one of his favorite receivers. Minnesota's giving up 32 points a game. I don't care who your quarterback is. You're not winning in the NFL playing that kind of defense. Now, why am I so confident that Kirk Cousins is going to finish this season as the Vikings starting quarterback? 2 reasons. 1, I mentioned earlier. He's playing on a fully guaranteed contract. And 2, because the only other option for Mike Zimmer is Sean Mannion, a guy who has started a total of 2 games in his 5-year career. He's won 0. The 1 game he started for the Vikings last season against the Bears in Week 17, he was god-awful. I know it's the popular thing to do right now, crapping all over Kirk Cousins. And I'm not defending him. He has got to play better. But this season's over for Minnesota. At 1-5, with Chicago and Green Bay sitting 4 games atop the NFC North, and Detroit improving, the Vikings are not making the playoffs. Instead of thinking about benching Kirk Cousins for Sean Mannion, Mike Zimmer and the front office need to be thinking about fixing this defense. All right, last but not least, Nick Foles is saving the season in Chicago. Real. I got this one from the Daily Herald in Chicago, and I tweaked this a little bit. The actual article talks about Nick Foles doing things that Mitchell Trubisky just can't do. like win football games on a regular basis. So I tweaked this one a bit, but the sentiment is the same. Going back to last season, I told you guys that Matt Nagy and the Bears desperately needed a quarterback because the Bears defense is not getting any younger. And while they're dominant and in their prime, they can't afford to let the defense go to waste because Mitchell Trubisky sucks. When they signed Nick Foles over the offseason, you knew it was only a matter of time before Matt Nagy replaced Trubisky with Foles. I believe Nagy had a feeling that his job would be on the line in Chicago if they went through another season like they did last year. And he wasn't about to lose his first head coaching gig because Mitchell Trubisky is ineffective. Now, when you look at Nick Foles statistically, his numbers are not that impressive. In the 3 games that he's started, he's yet to have a quarterback rating over 83.7. He's completing 64% of his passes for about 230 yards a game. He's thrown an interception in every game that he started this season. Yet, the Bears are winning. He rescued them against Atlanta when he stepped in for Mitchell Trubisky. He had 1 terrible game against the Colts, and now he's led the Bears to 2 straight wins, with one of those wins coming against Tom Brady and the Bucs, and getting a nice upset yesterday on the road against Carolina, who was one of the hottest teams in the NFL. You can say what you want about Nick Foles. Yes, he is a system quarterback. But when he's in the right situation, the right system, the guy's a winner. It might be ugly. It might be unconventional at times. It might seem lucky. But the dude wins football games. And that's all Matt Nagy and the Bears need from their quarterback. Their defense is elite in Chicago. The defense can keep them in games. All the Bears needed was a quarterback who could just manage the game, not make critical mistakes in crunch time, and make enough plays to win when they're called upon. That's it. It's as simple as that. Mitchell Trubisky couldn't do it. Nick Foles can. There are some guys in the NFL and the NBA that they might not be superstar players, but they're winners. And wherever they go, they win. J.J. Redick is a good example in the NBA. 15 years in the league, and he's made the playoffs every year except last season in New Orleans. Nick Foles is a great example in the NFL. First stint in Philadelphia, he was 14-4 as the starter. His second stint in Philly led him to a Super Bowl, 2 straight years in the playoffs. Now, he's winning in Chicago. Some guys just have that magic to them when they're in the right scenario. Nick Foles is one of those guys, which sucks if you're Mitchell Trubisky because his career is over in Chicago. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Tell me where I'm wrong. Is Baker Mayfield on thin ice in Cleveland? Is it time to panic in New England? Is Kirk Cousins the only problem in Minnesota? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you have any questions, a topic you'd like me to discuss, you can email me at BTLKC84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys next time.